Hey Team Bio, welcome to your screencast about evolution and hopefully correcting some misconceptions that some of you might have about evolution. Okay, to start off, I want to begin with a few definitions. A gene. A gene is a location on a chromosome. It's a place. An allele is the sequence of bases. I usually just said sequence of DNA bases at a gene. So, this is not the way we typically use the word gene in everyday language. Just like the word organic in science class means something slightly different than the word organic at the grocery store, a gene is a location on a chromosome, and all species, or all organisms of the same species, have all the same genes. They share the same locations on chromosomes. However, they have different alleles, the sequence of bases at those gene sites, which give them their unique characteristics. So your genetic code, if you look at someone across our classroom, you share all the same genes, but you have different alleles of those genes, different variations, which make us different from one another. Okay, so the colloquial use of the word gene is incorrect, and usually when people are talking about genes in everyday language, they actually mean alleles. Okay, so we all have the same genes, we're all humans, our genes are different than dogs, but we all have different alleles from one another. Unless you have an identical twin, then you share the same genes and the same alleles. Okay, evolution. Evolution is defined as the change, which we can also symbolize as a triangle or a delta, actually I just want to say the change in allele frequencies in a population So evolution is the change in allele frequencies over time in a population. So individuals do not evolve. We were all dealt a certain genetic hand at birth. We have all the alleles that we're going to ever have. Some caveat here, mutation, cancer, asterisk next to that statement. But individuals do not evolve, populations evolve. And we'll give an example of that later on in the screencast. Okay, the last definition I want to give you that's different than our everyday definition is the biological definition of fitness. Biological fitness is measured in number of offspring surviving to reproductive age. Okay, so an organism that is biologically fit is not strong or fast or big muscles, or it might be all of those things, but that's not how we measure its fitness. We measure fitness by the ability to survive and reproduce. The number of offspring that an individual leaves behind that also survive to reproductive age determines something's fitness. Okay, so these are our definitions. Our conditions for evolution. We need to have variation. If everyone in the population is the same, then there can be no evolution by natural selection. So we need variation, and also that variation needs to be heritable. If we have variation that's not encoded within the DNA, then evolution, natural selection by evolution Evolution by natural selection. Can't happen. Okay, we need overproduction. Of offspring. And we need competition for scarce resources. If all three of these things happen, then individuals that are well suited to an environment survive and reproduce. These individuals have a high biological fitness. So, if individuals that are well suited to the environment are surviving and reproducing more than other individuals that do not have those characteristics, then we'll see a change in allele frequencies, and generation 2 will have a higher number of individuals that have these characteristics that allowed their parents to survive and reproduce, and we will have evolution by natural selection. So when generation 2 has different allele frequencies, then generation 1, oops, not generation 2, this equals evolution. Okay, great. So let's talk about an example of this. We have a mouse population, and inside the mouse population there is, or all the mice have a coat color gene. There are 2 alleles of this gene in the population. There's the B allele, which gives them a brown coat, and an A allele, which gives them a golden coat. So if you look at the mouse population in generation 1, there are equal frequencies of A and B alleles. So if we were to look at the frequency of A relative to the frequency of B, we'd see that they're 1 to 1. So if we examine from generation 1 to generation 2, and we see that the frequency of A to B alleles has not changed, it's still 1 to 1, we know that there was no evolution. The A mice had equal fitness to the B mice, and they both left behind the same proportion of offspring to one another, and the population did not evolve between generation 1 to generation 2. Okay, let's imagine that in this generation, generation 2, there's a change in the environment. There is a drought. Now it's really dry. And it's actually beneficial to be a brown mouse. You can disguise yourself better in the really burnt fields. Before, there wasn't really an advantage to being brown or golden. They had equal surviving ability in these conditions, but now that there's a drought, it's better to have a brown coat. You can't be, you disguise, what's that called? You camouflage better than the golden coat guys. So if we look at generation 2, you'll notice that our proportion or a frequency of A to B, now we have 2 B's for every 1 A. This is evolution. What happened between generation 2 and generation 3? It wasn't that these golden mice became brown mice in the next generation. It's that these brown mice were more successful than these golden mice, so they had more babies. They were more biologically fit than the A mice. They survived better and reproduced better, and therefore the population evolved. Now there are more brown mice in this generation 3. But notice here, we have a new letter. This is a mutant. This sea mouse was a random mutation in the color coat gene, coat color gene. Who knows what caused the mutation? Maybe it was some sort of carcinogen. Maybe it was an error in DNA replication. Maybe it was ultraviolet radiation. Whatever the cause, it was totally random. And now there is a new allele of the coat color gene. It is the C allele. The C allele gives mice black coats. Okay, turns out that the C allele is even better in these new conditions. Maybe the drought has exposed a bunch of black rock, and the C allele, this mouse that has the C allele is very biologically fit. And so when we look at the next generation of mice, we see a ratio of A, let's say, is 1 to B, which is 3, to C, which is 2. So again, we've had evolution occurring in the population. And now we see a rise in the number of the frequency of sea mice in generation 4. Okay, I want to drive something home, however. This sea mouse emerged from a mutation in either the egg or the sperm of a bee mouse here. And it was born with this coat color. That mutation happened randomly in the parent of this sea mouse. It did not happen because the population needed a black coat color. It was a random mutation. It just happened that because there was a drought, now the sea coat color, the black coat color, is advantageous. But imagine it wasn't a drought and it was better to be a light colored mouse. Maybe we'd see this sea colored mouse die out. It would have been eaten if there were other environmental conditions. So different traits, different characteristics are benefits in one set of environmental conditions, and they are hazards in another set of environmental conditions. Make sure to write that down. Individuals do not evolve. Populations evolve over time. Variation is the result of random mutation. The mutation does not come out of a need. It is random, and if it is well suited to the environmental conditions, then we see the population evolve. Evolution can only act on existing variation. Maybe a mouse with a we already have a brown coat. Maybe a mouse with a gray coat would be even better than a mouse with a golden coat, a mouse with a brown coat, or a mouse with a black coat. But that variation doesn't exist in our current population. And so evolution by natural selection can't act on it. It can only act on existing variation, and all existing variation is the result of random mutation. Okay, that is all. I hope you enjoyed. See you in class tomorrow.